My name is Tyler Waterbury. This is going to be my persuasive speech, and here's my audience, or people. My speech is going to be over the positive effects of having a dog and how that will impact your life and the certain things that dogs can do for families that have disabilities and things like that. So the first thing I want to talk about is there are several studies that show having a dog can lower stress. It can do certain things for your cardiovascular. All of these studies come out of Harvard, and they talk about a certain thing that have like a calming effect. So whenever you have a dog and you have a stressful day, you can go home and cuddle up to your dogs. And the study also talks about how dogs, a lot of times, they're very loyal and they mimic you. So if you come home and you're sad, your dog can recognize that because they go off of only body cues because they don't have any verbal communication with you. So it's always good to go home and have a stress release by owning a dog. And it's very, very good for your dog too, and it creates a sense of family. The other thing that having a dog does, especially if you have a family, is a child. So children grow up and they grow up learning from their surroundings, and when they learn from their surroundings, one of those things can be a dog, and it's very positive on the child because it teaches the child for responsibility, because they see this animal that they care about, that they love, that they cherish, that needs food, it needs to be walked, it needs to be cared for. When they're a puppy, they need to be picked up and taken over the stairs. And whenever they're an older dog, they need to be helped outside and certain things like that. And so the child growing up lacks the sort of physical body language skills that a lot of adults have. But the child growing up with a dog who doesn't have any verbal communication can see that and start to recognize certain empathy things. So if the dog, for example, while you're eating food, gives you doggy eyes, then you know that the dog wants something. He wants you to give him food. The other thing is whenever you come home and you're upset, a lot of times you'll notice your dog runs up to you and gets in your face and licks you and kisses you and hugs you. And also, whenever you come in, you're very excited. Your dog will go crazy and he'll be all over you. And this creates a sort of bond, especially with a child. You see a lot of kids who grow up, they have a lot more empathy and they can become like a more compassionate person when it comes to stuff like that. The next thing, when it comes to children, it teaches children how to act around small kids and other smaller animals like that because they recognize that dogs have a need that other people don't. And going on to that, there's a survey by Ackerman Security Companies, one of the large companies in the world, and they took a survey of 342 convicted burglars, and all of these burglars said that the fourth highest thing that would deter them from breaking into a house was a dog. Now you would think that this would mean like a big dog or a big scary dog or a mean dog that would attack, but it wasn't. This can range from having a very large dog who is a guard dog, who is an attack dog that will protect you and protect your family and stop an intruder, but this could also be a very small dog or a very tiny dog because they'll bark and bark and bark and yell, and you'll wake up, you'll know that they're there. And besides that, dogs have many purposes for families. So for example, the dogs are many service dogs, so you have military veterans who come back and they have stress and anxiety, and they start to they start to realize certain things in their life that are triggers. The dogs can be trained to recognize these triggers and recognize whenever somebody's having a flashback or PTSD, and they'll come and comfort them. The other types of guide dogs, you have like hearing dogs, mobility dogs, diabetic, seizure dogs, and autism support dogs. So especially for kids with autism, they go through a lot of things. A lot of the sounds they take in, they want to push back out, and they don't know how exactly to communicate that. Well, that's kind of the same way with dogs. Dogs don't know exactly how to communicate a lot of the feelings that they have, so they go off of just body language, which in turn teaches a kid who has a disability or something like that to really learn off of body language of other people and learn how to show their own body language to help others out. The other type is a hearing dog. So for example, with an older couple or an older lady or an older man, if they're in the house, they are a lot more likely to get broken into, and other things. If they're in the house and there's a fire, if they're in the house and something's going off like the oven and they don't hear it, the dogs a lot of times can alert them to stuff like that. Or if somebody's knocking on the door or a mailman, a lot of times dogs can help in areas like that. When it comes to mobility, a lot of dogs can help people who have mobility issues by standing beside them and helping them whenever they're going up the stairs, just giving them something steady to hold on to. These dogs are typically taken from packs right at about 6 weeks. One of the special cases of these is also seizure dogs. So these dogs are taken and they're put into a home of somebody who has a history of seizures and a history of taking that risk of having a seizure and falling over and hitting your head or busting your head and stuff like that. And these dogs can recognize that. There's actually a case of a dog who, whenever he recognizes that his owner is going to have a seizure, he ducks under her and protects her head. Now, these things aren't with all dogs, but every dog specifically is usually bred for a certain thing. So the other way that owning a dog would help you, besides your physical safety, your physical health, protecting you and your family, teaching your kids responsibility, is if you, for example, were like a farmer and you had, a sheep herd. There are dogs that are bred to herd the sheep. So when it comes to helping you with outside chores, when it comes to helping you with watching the kids and making sure they don't go around something that they shouldn't, for example, like a snake or something. The other thing that dogs can do for families is really create a sense of bond and unity. And the way that they can do this is by helping in the family, going from one person to the other, calming and having that calming effect. And it doesn't just have to be in a family; it could be a one-person setting. So if you have one person, like I said earlier, like a military vet who comes home and he doesn't really have anybody to come home to, especially with military veterans when it comes to suicide, one of the biggest factors that they could have is having a service dog there that's registered for them, or not even a service dog. It could just be a regular dog. So I think it's really important for anybody who doesn't have a dog to own a dog for the physical reasons, for the safety reasons, for the medical reasons. It's just all around better to own a dog. And the reason that you need to help in owning a dog is about every year, 670,000 dogs are euthanized. So whenever you go somewhere and you adopt a dog and you start that process of owning a dog, you're putting money in, whether it's $50 to $200 into helping a shelter and pay for a shelter, whereas those costs for a shelter usually come out to about $2.1 million or $411 for every dog. So even though you're not giving them as much money as the dog that they need to take care of, it's still helping the dog and it's still helping a family around. So do you guys have any questions?
Yeah. How many service dogs are there and what types are the most common?
When it comes to service dogs in the U.S. registered, this is according to the SPCA, they are about 387,000 service dogs. Most of these service dogs are with disabilities, with people with disabilities, so the statistic is 0.9%. And these dogs can range from autism support, diabetic dogs. The diabetic dogs will notice whenever their owner is having a sugar drop or their sugar's a little bit too high and they don't notice it themselves. There's mobility dogs to help people around and kind of watch out for steps and guide them. There's hearing dogs for the elderly and for kids who are deaf. There are guide dogs, that would be for somebody who's blind when they're walking. And then there are seizure dogs who would help when it comes to protecting their owner from falling and smashing their head and stuff like that. This is why you should own a dog. Thank you.